Coming up on Nittany Game Week.
It was a great ride. I'm ready for the next chapter. I'm ready to pass the torch on to Coach Campbell.
The Nittany Lions finish off the 2025 season with a 4-game winning streak, while Terry Smith receives a ton of praise, keeping this team together on and off the field.
It's an opportunity for me to go out there with my boys one last time, and it was a privilege.
He's one of the few star players to suit up for the blue and white. The reason Dennis Sutton never hesitates to play in the Pinstripe Bowl.
For us to be so privileged as to have two of the great universities in the country, Clemson and Penn State, is a true honor.
In addition to the victory at Yankee Stadium, PSU spends part of the holidays in New York City, what the team experiences while hanging out in the Big Apple. This is Nittany Game Week. What a long, strange year it's been for Penn State football. New Year's Eve of 2024, the Nittany Lions celebrate a Fiesta Bowl victory over Boise State to advance to the national semifinals. Less than 365 days later, interim head coach Terry Smith and the guys are in New York City for the holidays to hoist the Pinstripe Bowl trophy after beating Clemson 22-10. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nittany Game Week. I'm Todd Sadowski alongside former Nittany Lions assistant coach Jay Paterno. What a wild and entertaining 2025 campaign. 3 non-conference wins to start, a 6-game slide in Big Ten play with a 4-game win streak to cap it off. Just more evidence, Jay, that you can never be sure what's going to happen when it comes to college football.
Well, we talked about last show. You know, a lot of people thought Penn State and Clemson might meet at the end of the year, just not in the Pinstripe Bowl. And I mean, you look at the playoff game. Nobody in August had Oregon, Indiana, Miami, and Ole Miss in the playoffs. So again, that's the beauty of college football.
No doubt about it. And joining us now from his home in Pittsburgh is former defensive coordinator Tom Bradley. Tom, sure, it's fun to have those positive vibes with the team after a bowl win.
You know why? Because you got to live with it till the whole next year, to the next season. So that winning the last game is so important. I think it just sets a tone for what's going to happen in the winter program, spring practice, the summer. It just makes it a lot better when you end with a win.
7-6 overall. Pretty obvious this team was much better than their final record indicates. The offense pulls away from Clemson in the fourth quarter. Defense tames the Tigers all day long. And a senior star shines because of his decision to suit up one more time for the blue and white in our opening drive. The reward for 3 wins in their last 3 games is a trip to the Big Apple. What a cool venue to play in. Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, snow and ice storm the night before. And Jay, the offense continues their commitment to the run game. Redshirt freshman Quinton Martin Jr. with over 100 yards, and redshirt freshman quarterback Ethan Grunkemeyer continues to develop with another 2-minute drill and a pair of TD passes in the fourth quarter.
I think you really saw a different offensive approach than you saw earlier in the year, no question about it. Clemson had some opt-outs. Everybody had opt-outs, but the ones they had were up front, and Penn State took advantage of that with the run game. And we'll talk about in the scouting report later how that all translated into a big day for them.
Tom, I know you love special teams. Ryan Barker with a good day kicking the ball. But when it comes to Grunkemeyer, he connects with senior Trevor Pena, who happens to be from the Bronx, and he bounces off 2 guys and goes 73 yards for the score. It is impressive when you see a receiver handle physicality and stays on their feet. It's really difficult for defensive backs, isn't it?
It sure is, especially, it's a play he's never going to forget. That play, by the time he gets to be about another 10 years old, that'll have gone for about 100 yards.
Well, Grunkemeyer's 23 of 34, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 260 yards. He respects the job done by an inexperienced offensive line in front of him, while Pena appreciates this stretch run with Coach Smith at the helm.
Definitely saw that. It's kind of similar to, like the Iowa game for me. It was just, I knew what some of those guys were going to be feeling. So, especially in the second half when we really got rolling on offense, I felt like, they did a great job holding up, and, we started making plays, and, I got really confident behind them.
It's been amazing. I mean, Terry's he's somebody that you want to play for, and he's such a good leader. You can tell why everybody rallies around him. And, he instills that toughness in us and makes us play for something bigger than ourselves. So I really respect him and thank him for everything.
This is truly the lasting image of the 25 season. Coach Smith and the guys holding up that trophy. Fun to see the smiles and the celebrations.
Well, it's not easy to get organized for a bowl game when you aren't sure who's playing because of the opt-out or who's coaching the defense was solid from the start. But again, Tom, they made some really good adjustments as the game went on.
I thought that was the most impressive thing, and I'm glad you brought it up because I thought they did a really good job in the game management of that particular game.
Anthony Poindexter takes over the defensive calls for the game. For a player and the coaching staff, there can be a lot of confusion. There wasn't any for PSU's defense. They were fast, physical, and relentless.
Again, I alluded to, we'll talk about this as well in the scouting report, how aggressively they played in the secondary because the confidence they had in their ability to cover Clemson's receivers, and that changed the whole game because Clemson could not run the ball well enough.
One scoring drive in the fourth quarter is really the only blip on the radar screen. Coach Smith made sure to give Coach Poindexter his props after the victory.
Coach Poindexter did an amazing job getting these guys ready. He limited the pass game, completely shut down the run game. He's a great leader. He's a great leader of men. He's a great human being. He's one of the locker room favorites. You know, when you look at staff, players, anyone unanimously in the building is going to vote for Coach Poindexter as that guy.
Heck of a performance with so many moving parts and missing pieces, and way too many players opting out on the game on both sides to mention. Dennis Sutton keeps his promise to suit up and play for the blue and white. And as expected, he's a huge factor in the game with a pair of sacks and the usual intimidating presence.
Oh, I thought he was everywhere, and I thought this was great. It was a great message for younger guys when you see somebody that is that point in their career that stays in place for the game.
And asked about it afterwards, Dennis Sutton said, well, there was no decision to make.
I love football. I love playing football. I love this program. So it was sort of a no-brainer for me. I don't really comprehend not playing any games. Opportunity for me to go out there with my boys one last time, and it was a privilege.
Penn State fans certainly appreciate Denai's attitude and his effort. It's a performance and decision that will always be part of his Penn State legacy. So many positives to discuss from the pinstripe, including third down conversions. Our scouting report details why they were able to keep the chains moving against Clemson. More Nittany Game Week is on the way.
The opening drive is sponsored by R&R Express. Every shipment moved contributes to autism research and inclusion through the Excel Foundation. Learn more at wearerr.com.
These are more than just trucks. Every shipment moved by the R&R Express family of companies contributes to the Excel Foundation for Autism Research and Inclusion, funding safe spaces like the sensory room at Penn State's Beaver Stadium and a special event sensory trailer, and giving thousands that were unheard a voice.
Now is the time to amplify non-speaking voices and drive meaningful change.
These trucks are powered by purpose.
Every week, our groundskeepers are meticulously mowing, painting, repairing any damage from the previous game in preparation for Saturday. Our contributions to the team are providing safe playing surfaces for the athletes to showcase their abilities on. There's a lot of history here. Being able to be a part of that has been incredibly special for me.
Nittany Game Week is brought to you by West Shore Home, official partner of Penn State Football.
Welcome back to Nittany Game Week. A bowl victory at the end of the season helps to carry momentum into the offseason. It also offers an additional game to evaluate when making personnel decisions. Coach Paterno, the new staff coming on board in Happy Valley, has a lot of decisions to make. They'll probably like a lot of what they see from the Nittany Lions' performance in the Pinstripe Bowl.
No question. A lot of really good things to look at, especially on defense. Let's start with defense first. Anthony Poindexter did a phenomenal job getting the defense ready to go and did some things that were a little different, a little more aggressive. Here, the key situation in this game were third downs. And here's a third down for Clemson, 3rd and 5. They're going to rush 3. The linebackers do a great job of walling and forcing everything outside. The quarterback has nowhere to go, and Dennis Sutton, hats off to him for playing, had a great day. He comes off and makes the play. And again, they forced Clemson to punt the ball. won the situations, did a great job with it. Again, watch him, track him down. He's patient, and when the time comes, he commits. But there is nobody open because they're so aggressive. And let's talk about that on the next thing. They have no problems with the aggressive play on the outside, which then allows them, when Clemson decides they want to run the football, they can bring him off the edge to take the back away. Linebacker's going to step up and then aggressively comes out and tackles Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik for almost no gain. And Cade Klubnik, easy for me to say, right? Cade Klubnik can run a little bit, did a great job forcing him to go east and west, not north and south. Now, we talk about just the idea that they were not afraid of Clemson's wideouts. Here's a slot receiver against a corner or a cover guy here. This guy, watch him. He will not even break stride, stays flat-footed because he's not afraid of the over-the-top because they knew they could handle these guys. And again, this is the thing that was frustrating for Clemson. They were used to getting these plays, making guys miss and getting big plays. Here they get a gain of 6, and that can be very frustrating. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, another great job in the situations. Third downs. First half, second half, tail of two halves, the scoring became much better. A lot more yardage, a lot more passing, and the running game got a little better as the game went. Part of that was the situations. In the situations, they were able to take a team like Clemson that was 9th in the country on third down defense, only giving up 29%. Here they motion the tight end. Here they run what we call a switch route, where they take him over the top, bring him out. We'll see this on the video again, 3-level, and you'll see how effective this is. And one thing that's frustrating for Clemson, they're used to getting off the field. What happened to them was Penn State converted 11 of 19, almost 58%, twice what Clemson was used to giving up, and that allowed Penn State to control the ball for over 33 minutes, and that's one of the keys of this win. And then last but not least, we'll talk about the yards after the catch, and we all remember the big one with Pena, but this is another subtle one here. Here's a play-action pass. Grunkemeyer comes out. He hits a tight end in the flat. He's only about 2 yards downfield. But what ends up happening is the point of tackle, he makes a miss. You'll see on the video. That leads from a 2-yard completion, if they make the tackle, to now what becomes an 18-yard chunk play, which gets a drive going and keeps the ball moving and really becomes very, very frustrating. So, again, a great day for Penn State in key situations and yards after the catch, and that's why they come back with the win in the Pinstripe Bowl over Clemson.
There is something magical about the location of the game during Christmas time and the holidays. The cold weather Pinstripe Bowl is gaining traction as they land 2 marquee names in the college football world.
Here we sit 17 years later, having 2 of the top football institutions in the country, 2 perennial top 10 teams, and they're playing here at Yankee Stadium. What a privilege.
They write movies and shows and sing songs about New York in the holiday season, and we at the Pinstripe Bowl are delighted to be part of it.
Members of both teams are at the New York Stock Exchange the day before the game to ring the opening bell. The Nittany Lions made sure to visit the 9/11 Memorial Site. Definitely a unique venue and city to host a college football bowl game. Up next, our Impact interview. A lot of issues to address when it comes to college football, and we've had some of the foremost authorities on the sport to discuss them. We tackle some of the tough subjects, like a transfer portal that's open with 4 teams still playing. Nittany Game Week returns after this.
This journey started on these very grounds, in these stands, with this community. West Shore Home was proudly made right here in Pennsylvania. We took a passion, a drive, and built a company that believes in hard work and success, just like this football team. Remember going to your first game? The roar of the crowd? The feeling of being part of something bigger? That's a feeling you never forget.
Bring that same feeling to your home with an extra $750 off, in addition to our current offer, by visiting westshorehome.com/PSU.
Do you guys know where Chris is? He said he had a great new idea for the Pocono Mountains.
Yeah, but he's not here. What's his big idea now?
Hey guys, did you plan your travel getaway? Why not try the Pocono Mountains travel guide? It has everything you need. Place, stay.
Well, I think I found him.
It's a complete guide to everything in the Poconos. We're just not one resort. We're a 2,400 square mile destination.
For your free guide, go to PoconoMountains.com.
Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
We're back on Nittany Game Week. Time for our Impact interview segment. We are fortunate to have the opportunity to have conversations with some of the foremost authorities on the sport of college football. And there are a lot of issues and changes to discuss about the game. So we picked out a few of the subjects on the minds of a lot of fans that we were able to ask and address in the past year. And we start with Big Ten Network analyst Yogi Roth. Now, the transfer portal is open, and there are 4 teams still competing. So I asked Yogi about how do we fix this college football calendar.
Coaches leaving teams, obviously that's not okay. Players not being able to be on their teams, that's not okay. I mean, there's the obvious that is not okay. I also looked to the craft and the profession. I don't know how appealing it's going to be to some people that are thinking, do I come down from the National Football League? It's one thing for the money, but to your point of the calendar and the structure, it's a little out of whack. As I play this thing out a couple of years, if you said, okay, put your commissioner cap on, I would urge people to say, how do we make college football entertaining? I believe this, and I hate to say it, but when the season and the games end, a dark cloud comes over our sport. Now, it goes away when the playoff games start again, and it goes away when spring practice starts again and training camp, but it kind of is always hovering. It's hovering around the portal. It's hovering around NIL. It's hovering around coaches leaving. And if you look at, obviously, the NFL, and this is pseudo-NFL light, look at all the teams now posting photos of their players signing like they just signed an extension in the National Football League. They're signing for their 6-month agreement or their 8-month agreement, whatever might be pending eligibility. And I just think there's a world where we can make this entertaining. Like, how fun would it be to have a show that is after the season that talks about free agency in the portal, that talks about signing day, that talks about the coaching carousel? Right now, it's not. And when you're Indiana, Ohio State having signing day the same week of the Big Ten title, the same week that players are announcing that they're going to the portal, as you have to navigate your own roster, I just think it's a gray cloud. And I think the more and more we wait and don't do anything, I think fans are going to get turned off. And I just think that the periphery of the game is going to become one where you're like, I don't want to watch that anymore. And the blue blood fans, they'll always be in because that's what it is. But these other teams that are, call it 30 through 60 in power football, it's hard. I think it's hard. And I think that part gets ignored when all we do is talk about how great the game is and viewership and the numbers. Like, we're not talking about the other 30 teams where life is a challenge, and the calendar doesn't help any of them. So I would urge that to be a huge part of it. I think it would make even more money because of TV and entertainment and all the things. But right now, it's a little bit of a mess, and the academic calendar has a lot to do with that. And that's where I think people on the academic side, like, there has to be a little bit of an adjustment among all and say, okay, the sport has changed. And the degrees, they aren't as valued in my lens as they once were, as much as I value them. I want my kids to value them. In college football, it's about playing. And that's the sad truth of it. So there's a lot that has to change, but I would start with trying to make this thing entertaining instead of a dark cloud sometimes that comes over our sport.
We had former Penn State player A.Q. Shipley on the show as well. And we talked to him about how different things are now as opposed to then, because at the time when he was getting recruited, you sold kids on the academic experience. You sold them on being part of great teams. You sold them on being having a chance to go to the NFL. And he had some thoughts as to how that's changed so much over the years.
Yeah, it's a different time now, right? Like, I loved everything about my experience. And, you know, I think when you think of college athletics and you think of the experience that the older college athletes went through, I think it was everything. I think community importance was huge. I think academics was huge. I think, you know, grooming this person for not only, you know, obviously you want to get to the NFL, but if you don't go to the NFL, we want to set you up for success in whatever you decide to do. And I think that's becoming a little bit of a lost art, because I think now, today's day and age, with the NIL and the transfer portal and all of these things, I think it's a little bit of a lost issue, because, you know, it's constantly, we're always searching for the next best thing, right? If you don't get exactly what you want, it's like, okay, I can just transfer it. I can go here, right? Or this team's going to pay me a little bit more money. And, like, at the end of the day, what does that really mean? What does that really mean, right? And so I think they got to get it figured out to a certain extent, which I think they're going to start to. I think they had to start wild, wild west and then rein it in. And, you know, I think there's a lot of old people that are just like, well, you know, I hate this, but at the end of the day, you have to get on board. And that's kind of where we're at right now. You either get on board or you don't get on board. And if you don't get on board, you got no chance at competing in football. But to your point, I think there is still that aspect of the student athlete today that still wants to be involved in the community. You watch it every year, at least at the NFL level. I'm much more in that world now. And, you know, the Walter Payton Man of the Year thing is always a huge thing. It's how much can you impact the communities? How much can you give back to the community? How much can you help the younger generation? And there's so many of those things. So I think that aspect is still there. I think it's just got to be taught and coached up a little bit more.
Greg, looking around the coaching profession, the number of high-profile firings already and the massive buyouts, do you ever see a correction in the market that gets us back to a more rational place?
What a great question. No, I don't. Because let's be real, man. Like what blows my mind about this, and look, we are all, I can't say we are all. I think a lot of people are pretty responsible, you know, from a financial decision-making approach to their life. For whatever reason, when it comes to our affiliation with sports, we are completely irrational, and that's okay. But I think part of what has driven this change in the landscape with coaches' contracts is fear. And fear, I think, is a very powerful tool. Fear of a negative headline because your coach left for another place. That's something that has driven a lot of these decisions. And to me, my question has always been like, what are you scared of? Like, if a guy wants to go and he wants to go elsewhere, like, let's not be irrational. Like, let's stick to the blueprint of what we think makes our place special. And like, if they're willing to give him a 10-year deal, like, just go. That's okay. Like, well, fine. And does it look bad and does it hurt for a moment? Sure, but we've seen at Florida State when Jimbo Fisher left. We've seen at Oklahoma when Lincoln Riley left. Like, there is fear. Not against anything the coaches are doing. The coaches are getting the best deal. They should create leverage. They should maximize their opportunity. I fully support these coaches getting every dollar that they're getting. I'm just continually amazed at how many athletic directors continue to give them that.
Our Impact interviews are must-listen-to type of guests, and you can find all of our conversations on our website, nittany-game-week.com, along with previous episodes of the show. Don't go anywhere, still to come. Tom hands out his final scrap medal of the season. The special connection this week's winner has to the site of the bowl game. We're heading into the final minutes of Nittany Game Week.
Nittany Game Week is brought to you by West Shore Home, official partner of Penn State Football.
This is Maya. Maya used to not like family vacation.
I'm on vacation, and I'm stuck with my family.
But this year, she's at Kalahari.
This is self-care.
And my feet have never looked better.
And her dad's feet have never looked better.
She's letting us in the picture.
Don't ruin it.
And where parents are actually in the picture.
You should totally come next time.
You should. You should totally come to Kalahari.
Get Kalahari'd away.
These are more than just trucks. Every shipment moved by the R&R Express family of companies contributes to the Excel Foundation for Autism Research and Inclusion, funding safe spaces like the sensory room at Penn State's Beaver Stadium and a special event sensory trailer, and giving thousands that were unheard a voice.
Now is the time to amplify non-speaking voices and drive meaningful change.
These trucks are powered by purpose.
Scrap Metal is sponsored by Burke and Bradley Orthopedics. Located in Pittsburgh, Burke and Bradley Orthopedics is a comprehensive sports medicine practice, providing patients with the most current and innovative approaches in diagnosis and treatment.
It's time for the final scrap medal of the season, and there's a little more to the story for Pinstripe Bowl Most Valuable Player, Trevor Pena.
Hey, you can call it a Bronx tale for the senior wideout who was born near Yankee Stadium and raised in New York. He returns to the Big Apple and catches 5 passes for 100 yards, including the most exciting play of the game, a 73-yard catch and run for Penn State's first touchdown.
It's trivia time. This will be last week's question. This will be Penn State's second game in New Yankee Stadium. Penn State played 2 in Old Yankee Stadium. Which other New York City ballpark had Penn State played football in? The answer was the Polo Grounds. Our winner was Jody Kegras of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Also forgot to mention the previous week's winner of our question last week was Joe Sporco.
We're bringing PSU fans and alumni together with our Nittany Connect network at nittany-game-week.com, partnering with businesses that support our show and letting our viewers know about their great products and professional services. Make sure to check out nittany-game-week.com for all of our web exclusive content, the air times for all of our network of stations, previous episodes, of course, and interviews. All can be found at one convenient location, nittany-game-week.com. This concludes our football-only Nittany Game Week episodes, but we have a long way to go for this season as we begin to produce our all-sports shows starting next week. For Jay and Tom, I'm Todd. Thanks so much for watching Nittany Game Week. We'll see you next time.
Every week, our groundskeepers are meticulously mowing, painting, repairing any damage from the previous game in preparation for Saturday. Our contributions to the team are providing safe playing surfaces for the athletes to showcase their abilities on. There's a lot of history here. Being able to be a part of that has been incredibly special for me.